The old man was cutting a Dovetail joint when the sheriff's car pulled into the driveway. Arthur Mears held the chisel steady. He was 78 years old, and his hands had not trembled in 60 years of woodworking. They did not tremble now. He set the chisel down on the workbench, wiped his palm on his canvas apron, and walked to the front door with the unhurried precision of a man who had built furniture for governors and once, at the height of his career, a desk for a Supreme Court justice. 2 deputies stood on the porch. One was young, maybe 25, with a fresh crew cut and a brass badge so polished it caught the October light like a mirror. The other was older, gray at the temples, his face carrying the particular exhaustion of a man who had delivered bad news for 20 years. "Mr. Arthur Mears," the older deputy said. "That's right. Sir, do you know where your wife is?" Arthur's chest went cold. "Louise is at the grocery store. She went for milk and bread at 10 o'clock. That was 3 hours ago." The older deputy looked at the younger one. The younger one looked at his boots. "Sir," the older deputy said, "there's been an incident at the Maplewood Shopping Center. A man drove his pickup through the front of the grocery store. 7 people were transported to County General. Your wife was among them." Arthur did not ask how bad it was. He had been a carpenter long enough to know that when a man drives a Ford F-250 through a plate glass window at 40 miles per hour, the physics is not negotiable. Glass does not stop steel, and a 75-year-old woman standing at the dairy aisle does not stop a truck. "What hospital?" Arthur said. "County General, I can take you there." Arthur turned back to the workbench. The Dovetail joint was half finished. A piece of black walnut 18 inches long, 4 inches wide, cut to quarter-inch tolerances. He had been building a hope chest for his granddaughter Emily, who was getting married in June. Emily was 23. She had her mother's laugh and her grandmother's patience, and she had asked Arthur to build her something she could pass down to her own daughter someday. He covered the walnut with a clean cotton cloth. He put the chisel in its leather sheath. He locked the workshop door. "I'm ready," he said. At County General, a nurse named Patricia with kind eyes and a wedding ring that had worn a groove into her finger led him to a room on the 3rd floor. The room had white walls and a white ceiling and a white floor, and the only color in the room was the blood on Louise's hospital gown. Louise was unconscious. Her left arm was broken in 3 places. Her pelvis was fractured. Her ribs had punctured her left lung. The doctors had already performed emergency surgery to stop internal bleeding, but the damage was extensive. The truck had hit her at the moment of impact, thrown her 12 feet across the dairy aisle, and pinned her against a stack of milk crates that shattered on impact. Arthur sat beside her bed. He took her right hand, the one without the IV, and held it. Her fingers were cold. They had been cold every winter for 53 years, and every winter Arthur had warmed them between his palms. He did that now. "Louise," he said. "It's Arthur." "I'm here." She did not respond. The doctors told him she might not wake up for days. They told him the next 48 hours were critical. They told him that even if she woke up, she would need months of physical therapy, possibly years. They told him the medical bills would be substantial. Arthur listened. He nodded. He did not ask how much. Their son Derek arrived at the hospital at 7 o'clock that evening. Derek Mears was 47 years old. He was a corporate lawyer at Whitfield, Chase & Associates, one of the top firms in the state. He drove a black Mercedes S-Class with heated seats and a navigation system that cost more than Arthur's first house. He wore a navy suit that had been tailored in Milan, a watch that had been assembled in Switzerland, and shoes that had been stitched by hand in Italy. When Derek walked into the hospital room, he did not hug his father. He stood at the foot of the bed, looked at his mother, and said, "How bad?" Arthur told him. Derek nodded. He pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'll talk to the hospital administration. I'll get the insurance information. We need to make sure they're not going to try to bill us for anything unnecessary." Arthur looked at his son. Derek's face was smooth and clean-shaven. His hair was thinning at the crown, but he had it styled in a way that hid it. His teeth were white and straight. He looked like a man who had never been surprised by life. "Your mother is in a coma," Arthur said. "I know, Dad. I'm trying to help." Arthur said nothing. He turned back to Louise and held her hand. For 3 days, Arthur did not leave the hospital. He slept in the chair beside Louise's bed. He ate sandwiches from the cafeteria. He talked to Louise even though she could not talk back. He told her about the walnut hope chest, how the grain was coming out, how the dovetails were tight. He told her about the birds at the feeder in the backyard, how the cardinals were back for winter. He told her that the neighbor's cat had gotten into the workshop again and left paw prints on the fresh glue. On the 3rd day, Louise opened her eyes. She did not speak. She looked at Arthur, and her eyes were clear, and she squeezed his hand once weakly, and then she went back to sleep. The doctor says was a good sign. He said her brain function was normal. He said she was stable. Arthur called Derek to tell him. Good, Derek said. I'll come by the house tomorrow. We need to talk about some things. Legal things. Legal things? Mom's will. Your will. You should have them updated. If something happens to you, we need to make sure everything's in order. Arthur was silent for a moment. He looked at Louise, who was sleeping peacefully, her chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the ventilator. Okay, Arthur said. Come by tomorrow. Derek arrived at the house at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. It was October 17th. The leaves had turned. The air was cold and clear. Arthur had made coffee, strong black coffee, the way he'd been drinking it since 1965. He set 2 mugs on the kitchen table and sat down. Derek walked in without knocking. He was carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Arthur's table saw. He set it on the kitchen counter, opened it, and pulled out a stack of papers. Dad, I've drafted a new will for you and Mom. It's standard. It updates the language. It makes sure everything goes smoothly. Arthur took the papers. He put on his reading glasses, the ones with the scratch on the left lens from when he dropped them on the concrete floor of the workshop. He read the first page. The will stated that upon the death of Arthur Mears and Louise Mears, all assets, properties, and possessions would be transferred to Derek Mears. That was it. No provisions for Emily, their granddaughter. No provisions for the church. No provisions for anything. Derek, this leaves everything to you. Yes, Dad. That's standard. I'm your only child. What about Emily? What about the church? We've always given to the church. The church doesn't need money, Dad. They have plenty, and Emily is young. She'll make her own way. Arthur looked at his son. Derek was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, his face perfectly neutral. He looked like a man negotiating a contract, not a man talking to his father. I want to think about this, Arthur said. Dad, there's nothing to think about. It's a standard will. I'll notarize it right now. We can file it today. I want to talk to Louise first. Mom can't talk, Dad. She's on a ventilator. She's sedated. She can't make decisions right now. Arthur set the papers down. Then we wait until she can. Derek's face changed. It was subtle, a tightening around the jaw, a flicker of something cold in his eyes. But Arthur had been watching his son's face for 47 years. He knew what impatience looked like. He knew what frustration looked like. And he knew what something else looked like. Dad, I'm trying to protect you. If something happens, if you die without a will, the state will take everything. The probate fees alone. I know what probate fees are, Derek. I'm not senile. I didn't say you were senile. I'm saying, I know what you're saying. They sat in silence. The coffee grew cold. Outside, a flock of geese passed overhead, their calls fading south. Leaved of the papers. I'll look at them. Derek hesitated. Then he smiled, that practiced smile that Arthur had seen 1,000 times, the one that meant Derek was calculating something. Sure, Dad. Take your time. But don't wait too long. You never know what might happen. He left. The door clicked shut behind him. Arthur sat at the kitchen table for a long time. He looked at the papers. He looked at the coffee. He looked at the photograph on the wall, the one from 1972. Louise holding baby, Derek in her arms, Arthur standing beside her, both of them young and hopeful and certain that they had built something good. He folded the will and put it in the drawer. That night, Arthur could not sleep. He lay in bed beside Louise's empty side, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. The furnace kicked on, a low hum that vibrated through the floorboards. The wind rattled the windows. He thought about Derek. He thought about the way his son had looked at him in the kitchen, the impatience in his eyes, the calculation. He thought about the will, how Derek had pushed it, how he had dismissed Arthur's concerns. He thought about the last time he and Louise had talked about their will. It was 3 years ago, at the kitchen table after dinner. Louise had brought out the old will, the one they'd had drafted by a lawyer in town, a good man named Harold Benson who had retired 5 years ago. The will left everything to Derek, but it also included specific bequests: the house to Emily, the workshop tools to the local high school's woodworking program, a donation to St. Mark's Church. Arthur, Louise had said, if something happens to both of us, I want Emily to have the house. She loves this house. She grew up here. I know, sweetheart. Me too. And I want the church to get something. They've been good to us. We'll put it in writing. They had not put it in writing. They had meant to, but life got in the way. Arthur had been working on a commission for a custom dining table. Louise had been dealing with her arthritis. They had talked about it, made plans, and then put it off. And now Louise was in the hospital, and Derek was pushing a new will, and Arthur did not know what to do. He got out of bed at 2:14 a.m. The dashboard clock in his truck read 2:14 when he drove to the hospital later that week, but right now at 2:14, he walked to the workshop. The workshop was a small building behind the house, 12 by 16 feet. insulated and heated. Arthur had built it himself in 1985, framing it with his own hands, wiring it with his own hands, finishing it with his own hands. The walls were lined with tools, chisels, planes, saws, clamps, all organized by size and function, all sharp and clean and ready. He turned on the light. The fluorescent tubes flickered and hummed. He walked to the oak bookshelf in the corner. The bookshelf was the first thing Derek had ever asked for. Not asked for, really. Demanded. It was 1998. Derek had just gotten his first apartment, and he wanted something to impress his new girlfriend, a woman named Patricia who had long blonde hair and a father who was a judge. Dad, can you build me a bookshelf? Something nice. Something that looks expensive. Arthur had spent 3 months on that bookshelf. He had selected the oak himself, driving 60 miles to a lumber yard that carried quarter-sawn white oak. He had cut every joint by hand, chiseled every mortise, fit every tenon. He had sanded it to a glass-smooth finish and applied 7 coats of hand-rubbed oil varnish. The bookshelf was a masterpiece. Arthur knew it was a masterpiece. He had built furniture for senators and judges, and this bookshelf was as good as anything he had ever made. But he had built something else into it too, something Derek did not know about. Arthur ran his hand along the bottom shelf, feeling for the seam. It was invisible even to a trained eye. He had cut the panel with a Japanese pull saw, the blade so thin it removed almost no wood. He had fitted the compartment with a magnetic latch hidden inside a false knot. He pressed the knot. The panel popped open. Inside was a small envelope sealed in wax. Beside it was a manila folder. Arthur took out the folder. He opened it. Inside was a will amendment. It was dated 3 years ago, the same week that he and Louise had talked about updating their wishes. The amendment specified that upon the death of Arthur Mears and Louise Mears, the house would pass to Emily Mears, their granddaughter. The workshop tools would pass to the Millbrook High School woodworking program. A donation of $10,000 would be made to St. Mark's Church. The remainder of the estate would pass to Derek Mears. It was signed by Arthur and Louise. It was witnessed by 2 neighbors, Frank Delgado and Margaret Chen. It was notarized by the county clerk, a woman named Diane Whitaker who had known Arthur for 30 years. Arthur had not told Derek about this amendment. He had not told anyone. He had built it into the bookshelf, sealed it into the wood, and waited. He had been waiting for the right moment. He had been waiting for a reason. Now he had one. Arthur put the amendment back in the folder. He put the folder back in the compartment. He closed the panel. He pressed the knot until he heard the magnetic latch click. He turned off the light and walked back to the house. In the kitchen, he poured himself a glass of water. He stood at the window, looking out at the dark yard, the bare trees, the cold October sky. He thought about Derek. He thought about the will. He thought about the bookshelf. He thought about what he would do if Derek tried to take everything. Louise came home from the hospital on November 3rd. She was frail. She had lost 20 pounds. Her left arm was in a cast. She walked with a cane, slowly, carefully, as if she was learning to use her legs all over again. Arthur had prepared the house. He had moved the bed downstairs. He had installed a railing in the bathroom. He had stocked the refrigerator with easy-to-prepare meals, soups and stews and casseroles. When Louise walked through the front door, she stopped. She looked around the living room at the furniture Arthur had built, the photographs on the wall, the books on the shelves. "I'm home," she said. "Welcome home, sweetheart." She sat down on the couch, slowly, carefully. Arthur sat beside her. She took his hand, the one that was not holding the cane. "Arthur, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "Before the accident, the day before, Derek came to see me." Arthur felt his chest tighten. What did he want? He wanted to talk about the will. He said we needed to update it. He said he had everything drafted, that we just needed to sign. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him I wanted to talk to you first." He said there wasn't time. He said you were getting older, that we needed to protect ourselves. Arthur was silent. I told him no, Louise said. I told him we would talk about it together. He got angry. He said I was being unreasonable. He said you were being unreasonable. He said. She stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's okay," Arthur said. "I know. He's our son, Arthur. How did he become this?" Arthur did not have an answer. He had asked himself the same question 1,000 times. He had watched Derek grow from a bright-eyed boy into a calculating man, watched him trade decency for ambition, watched him measure people by what they could do for him. "I don't know," Arthur said. "But I know what we need to do." He told her about the will amendment. He told her about the bookshelf, the hidden compartment, the signatures and the notary seal. Louise listened. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You built it into the bookshelf," she said. "I did. The one you gave Derek." "Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you. I wanted to have something, just in case." Louise reached up and touched his face. Her fingers were cold. "You're a good man, Arthur Mears. I try to be. Now we need to make sure that amendment gets where it needs to go. I know. Before Derek does something we can't undo." 2 weeks later, Derek called. "Dad, I need to come by. We need to finalize the will. I told you I want to wait until your mother is better. Mom is home now. She's recovering. There's no reason to wait. She's still in a cast, Derek. She's still on pain medication. She can't make decisions right now. Then you can make them for her. You have power of attorney. I don't want to make decisions without her. Dad, this is ridiculous. I'm trying to protect you. If something happens, nothing is going to happen. You don't know that. You're 78 years old. Mom is 75. You could have a heart attack tomorrow. You could fall down the stairs. You could, Derek." "What? I'm not signing anything until your mother is well enough to talk about it." There was a long silence on the line. Arthur could hear his son breathing, could hear the calculation happening in the silence. "Fine," Derek said. "But when something happens, don't come crying to me." The line went dead. Arthur set the phone down. He looked at the bookshelf in the living room, the one he had built for Louise in 1975, the one with the carved roses on the sides and the hidden drawer in the top. He thought about the amendment in the oak bookshelf, the one sitting in Derek's apartment, the one Derek had no idea existed. He thought about what he would do when Derek came for everything. Derek came on a Tuesday. It was November 28th. The first snow of winter had fallen the night before, a light dusting that covered the grass and the driveway and the roof of the workshop. The sky was gray and low. The air smelled of cold and wood smoke. Arthur was in the kitchen, making soup. Louise was on the couch, reading, her leg propped up on a pillow. The cast on her arm had been replaced with a brace, and she was starting to move it again, slowly, painfully. The door opened without a knock. Derek walked in. He was wearing a black cashmere coat over a gray suit. His shoes were polished. His face was smooth and determined. "Damn, we need to talk." Arthur turned from the stove. "We're eating dinner in an hour. Can this wait?" "No, it cannot wait." Derek walked into the living room. He stood in front of Louise, looking down at her. Louise looked up at him, her eyes steady. "Mom, I need you to sign these papers." He pulled a stack of documents from his briefcase and set them on the coffee table. "What are they?" Louise said. "The updated will. I've already had it notarized. I just need your signatures." "I told you, Derek. We're not signing anything until we've had time to think about it. You've had plenty of time. You've been home for 3 weeks. 3 weeks is not plenty of time. I've been recovering from a traumatic injury. I've been learning to walk again. Mom, I don't have time for this. I have a meeting tomorrow with a major client. I need this resolved." Arthur walked into the living room. He stood beside Louise, his hand on her shoulder. "Derek, you need to leave." "Dad, I'm not leaving until you sign these papers. You're not welcome here until you can speak to us with respect." Derek laughed. It was a cold laugh, flat and empty. "Respect? You want respect? I've been handling your finances for 10 years. I've been paying your bills. I've been making sure you don't get scammed. And you want to talk about respect? We never asked you to handle our finances," Arthur said. "You didn't have to. I did it because I'm your son. Because someone needed to make sure you didn't lose everything. We've never lost anything. We've been fine." "Fine? You live in a house that's falling apart. You drive a truck that's 20 years old. You have less than $50,000 in savings. That's not fine." That's our life, Derek. It's not yours to judge." Derek's face reddened, his jaw tightened. He looked at his mother, then at his father, then back at his mother. "You're going to sign these papers," he said. "One way or another. Get out of our house," Arthur said. Derek stood still for a long moment. Then he picked up the papers, put them back in his briefcase, and walked to the door. "You'll regret this," he said. "I already regret plenty," Arthur said, "but not this." The door slammed shut. The house was quiet. Louise started to cry. Arthur sat down beside her and put his arm around her. He held her while she cried, the way he had held her when the doctors told her about the accident, the way he had held her when they brought her home, the way he had held her for 53 years. "We need to do something," she said. "I know. Before he does something worse. I know." Arthur looked at the bookshelf. He looked at the carved roses, the hidden drawer, the secrets built into the wood. He thought about the amendment in Derek's apartment, hidden in the oak bookshelf, waiting. He thought about what would happen when Derek found it. Derek found the compartment on December 10th. Arthur knew because Derek called him at 9:47 p.m., his voice tight and cold. "Dad, I found something in the bookshelf." "A bookshelf?" "The one you built me. The oak one. There's a compartment in the bottom. There's an envelope inside." Arthur did not say anything. "Did you know about this?" "Yes." "You hid a will amendment in a bookshelf?" "Yes." "Why?" because I knew you would try to take everything." The silence on the line was heavy. Arthur could hear his son breathing, could hear the rage building. "Dad, this amendment is not valid. It's witnessed. It's notarized. It's completely valid. The witnesses are your neighbors. The notary is a county clerk. That's exactly what the law requires." "I checked." "You checked?" "Of course I checked. I'm not stupid, Derek." Another silence. Longer this time. "Dad, I'm going to contest this. I'm going to take you to court." "I'm going to? You're going to do what you're going to do." "But I want you to know something." "What?" "I built that bookshelf for you. I spent 3 months on it. I put my best work into it. And I put that amendment into it because I knew even then that you might not be the man I raised you to be. Dad, I love you, Derek. I have always loved you. But I will not let you take everything from your mother and your niece." The phone went dead. Arthur set the phone down. He looked at Louise, who was sitting on the couch, watching him. He found it. Arthur said, "I know. I heard. What do we do now?" Louise reached out and took his hand. "We fight." The fight began 3 days later. Arthur received a letter from Derek's law firm, Whitfield, Chase & Associates, informing him that a legal challenge had been filed against the will amendment. The letter cited undue influence and lack of mental capacity in proper execution. Arthur read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it and put it in the drawer with the will. "It's a bluff," he said to Louise. "He's trying to scare us." "Are you scared?" "No, but I'm not stupid either." "We need a lawyer." They found a lawyer named Sarah Okonkwo. She was 42 years old, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants, and she had been practicing estate law for 15 years. Her office was in a small building downtown above a bakery, and the smell of fresh bread drifted through the windows. Arthur told her everything. He told her about Derek. He told her about the will. He told her about the amendment. He told her about the bookshelf. Sarah listened. She took notes. When Arthur finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Mears, this is a strong case." "It is?" "Yes. The amendment is properly witnessed and notarized. You have clear documentation. And the fact that your son was acting as your legal advisor while drafting a will that benefited himself is, frankly, a conflict of interest that could get him disbarred." Arthur felt something loosen in his chest. "But," Sarah said, "there's a problem." "What's that?" "Your son has access to the amendment. He found it. He could destroy it. He wouldn't destroy it. It's evidence. Mr. Mears, you told me he's a corporate lawyer. He knows the value of evidence. And he knows that without the original document, your case is much weaker." Arthur looked at Louise. Louise looked at him. "We need to get that amendment back." Arthur said, "Yes, you do." "How?" "I don't know, but you need to figure it out fast." Arthur spent the next week trying to figure out how to get the amendment back. He could not go to Derek's apartment. Derek would not let him in. He could not call the police. There was no crime, not yet. He could not ask a friend. There was no one he trusted. He thought about the bookshelf. He thought about the hidden compartment. He thought about the lock, the magnetic catch, the false knot. He had built it. He knew how it worked. But he could not get to it. On December 15th, Arthur drove to Derek's apartment. It was a high-rise building in the city, 20 stories of glass and steel. Arthur parked his truck on the street and walked to the entrance. The lobby was clean and cold, with marble floors and a security desk. The security guard was a young man with a buzz cut and a bored expression. "I'm here to see my son," Arthur said. "Derek Mears." "Apartment 1407. The guard checked his computer. "I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Mears has left instructions that you are not to be admitted." Arthur felt the words like a punch to the chest. "He's my son." "I'm sorry, sir. Those are the instructions." Arthur stood in the lobby. He looked at the elevator, the doors closed, the numbers of it ticking up and down. He turned and walked out. In his truck, he sat for a long time. The heater was broken, and the cold seeped through his coat. He watched the building, the lights in the windows, the people coming and going. He thought about the bookshelf. He thought about the amendment. He thought about his son. He thought about what he would do next. On December 22nd, Arthur received another letter. This one was from the court. It informed him that a hearing had been scheduled for January 15th, at which a judge would determine the validity of the will amendment. Arthur read the letter. He folded it. He put it in the drawer. Then he went to the workshop. He pulled out the black walnut hope chest, the one he had been building for Emily. It was almost finished. The dovetails were tight. The finish was smooth. The hinges were brass, solid, heavy. He ran his hand along the top. He thought about Emily. He thought about her wedding in June. He thought about her mother, his daughter, who had died of cancer 10 years ago. He thought about how Emily had her mother's laugh, her mother's patience, her mother's kindness. He thought about what Derek was trying to take from her. He picked up his chisel. He cut into the bottom of the hope chest. On Christmas Day, Arthur and Louise sat alone in their house. The tree was small, a 5-foot fir that Arthur had cut from the back of the property. It was decorated with the same ornaments they had used for 50 years. Glass balls from the 1970s, wooden soldiers Arthur had carved, a star made of tinfoil that Derek had made in kindergarten. Louise had made a small dinner, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. They ate in silence, the only sounds the clink of silverware and the wind outside. After dinner, Arthur took Louise's hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For all of this. For Derek. For the fight. For Christmas." Louise squeezed his hand. "It's not your fault. I built him that bookshelf. I gave it to him. I put the amendment inside. You did what you thought was right, and now he has it." Louise was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Arthur, do you remember what you told me when we first got married?" "What did I tell you?" "You told me that wood remembers. That every tree holds the memory of the ground it grew in, the rain that fell on it, the sun that warmed it. And that when you work with wood, you're working with those memories." Arthur nodded. "I think that bookshelf remembers," Louise said. "I think it remembers who built it. And I think it remembers what was hidden inside." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe we don't need to get the amendment back. Maybe we just need to wait." Arthur looked at her. Her eyes were clear. Her face was calm. "Wait for what?" "For Derek to make a mistake." Derek made his mistake on January 2nd. He called Arthur at 8 o'clock in the morning. "Dad, I want to settle this." "Settle it how?" "I'll drop the legal challenge. I'll let the amendment stand. But I want the house. The house, and the workshop. You and Mom can live there until you die, but after that, it goes to me." Arthur was silent. "Dad, this is a good deal. You get to stay in your home. Emily gets the money from the estate. I get the property. Everyone wins. Except Emily. Emily doesn't need a house. She's young. She'll buy her own. She loves that house. She grew up in that house." "Dad, I'm trying to be reasonable here." "You're trying to take everything, Derek. That's what you're trying to do." The line went quiet. Arthur could hear his son breathing. "Dad, I have the amendment. I could destroy it. I could burn it. I could flush it down the toilet. And then where would you be?" "I would be in court, with witnesses, with a notary, with a case. You think your neighbors would testify against me? You think the county clerk would take your side over a lawyer?" "Yes, I do." Derek laughed. It was the same cold laugh, the same empty sound. "You're a fool, Dad. You always were a fool. Maybe. But I'm a fool who built a bookshelf that remembers." "What does that mean?" "You'll find out." Arthur hung up. On January 10th, 5 days before the hearing, Arthur drove to Derek's apartment. He did not go to the lobby. He did not try to see his son. He parked his truck across the street and watched. The building was quiet. The lights were on in some windows, off in others. The security guard was at his desk, reading a magazine. Arthur waited. At 9:47 p.m., Derek left the building. He was wearing a suit. He had a briefcase in his hand. He walked to his car, a black Mercedes, and drove away. Arthur waited another hour. Then he got out of his truck. He walked to the back of the building. There was a service entrance, a metal door that led to the basement. He had seen it when he visited Derek years ago, when Derek had given him a tour of the building. The door was locked. Arthur took out his tools. He had brought a set of lockpicks, the same ones he used to open antique furniture. He worked quickly, his hands steady, his fingers finding the pins and lifting them one by one. The lock clicked open. Arthur slipped inside. The basement was dark and cold. The concrete floor was damp. The air smelled of mold and oil. He found the stairs and climbed to the first floor. He took the elevator to the 14th floor. He walked to apartment 1407. The door was locked. He picked the lock again, faster this time, his hands moving with the precision of 60 years of practice. The door opened. Arthur stepped inside. The apartment was clean and modern. White walls, gray furniture, a glass coffee table, a television mounted on the wall, and in the corner, the oak bookshelf. Arthur walked to it. He ran his hand along the wood, feeling the grain, the finish, the joints he had cut with his own hands. He pressed the false nut. The panel popped open. The compartment was empty. The amendment was gone. Arthur stood in the silence of his son's apartment. He looked at the empty compartment. He looked at the bookshelf he had built. He had known this might happen. He had prepared for it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. It was a copy of the amendment, notarized and witnessed, the same as the original. He placed it in the compartment. Then he closed the panel and left. On January 15th, Arthur and Louise sat in the courtroom. The room was small and quiet. The walls were paneled in dark wood. The judge sat at a raised bench, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. Derek sat at the opposite table. He was wearing a navy suit and a red tie. His lawyer sat beside him, a young man with a confident smile. Sarah Okonkwo sat beside Arthur and Louise. She had a stack of papers in front of her. The judge called the case. Mr. Mears, the judge said to Derek, you are contesting the validity of a will amendment filed by your father? Yes, Your Honor. On what grounds? Undue influence, lack of mental capacity, improper execution. The judge looked at Arthur. Mr. Mears, what do you have to say? Arthur stood up. He was wearing his best suit, the one he had worn to his daughter's funeral. It was old, but it was clean and pressed. Your Honor, I have a copy of the amendment. It was witnessed by two neighbors, Frank Delgado and Margaret Chen. It was notarized by the county clerk, Diane Whitaker. I have their signatures. I have the notary's seal. Where is the original? The original was in a hidden compartment in a bookshelf I built for my son. He removed it. The judge looked at Derek. Mr. Mears, is this true? No, Your Honor. I have never seen this amendment. My father is confused. He's old. He doesn't remember things. Arthur felt Louise's hand on his arm. He did not turn around. Your Honor, Sarah said, I have a witness who can confirm the existence of the original document. The judge raised an eyebrow. Who? Frank Delgado. One of the witnesses. Frank Delgado was a retired mail carrier who lived 3 houses down from Arthur. He was 73 years old, bald with a kind face and a gentle voice. He walked to the witness stand. He was sworn in. Mr. Delgado, Sarah said, do you remember signing a will amendment for Arthur and Louise Mears? Yes, I do. It was 3 years ago. Arthur came to my house. He had the papers. He asked me to witness them. What did the papers say? I don't remember exactly, but I know they were about his will. He told me he wanted to make sure his granddaughter got the house. Did you see Mr. and Mrs. Mears sign the papers? Yes, they signed them in front of me, and I signed as a witness. Did you see the notary seal? Yes, there was a notary there. A woman named Diane Whitaker. The judge looked at Derek. Mr. Mears, do you have anything to say? Derek stood up. His face was red. His hands were shaking. Your Honor, this witness is lying. He's my father's friend. He's doing him a favor. Frank Delgado did not flinch. He looked at Derek with steady eyes. I am not lying, son. I signed that paper. I remember it clear as day. Your Honor, the young lawyer said, standing up, this witness is unreliable. He's elderly. His memory could be faulty. The judge looked at Frank Delgado. Mr. Delgado, do you have any medical conditions that affect your memory? No, Your Honor. I have a clean bill of health. I run every morning. I do crossword puzzles. My memory is fine. The judge nodded. She looked at Derek. Mr. Mears, do you have any witnesses to support your claim? Derek hesitated. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Derek shook his head. No, Your Honor. No witnesses? No evidence? The original document is missing, Your Honor. Without it, this amendment is invalid. The judge turned to Sarah. Ms. Okonkwo, do you have any other evidence? Sarah stood up. She was calm. She was prepared. Your Honor, I have a copy of the notary's log from that date. Diane Whitaker's records show that she notarized a will amendment for Arthur and Louise Mears on March 12, 2021. The log includes their signatures. It includes the time and date. She handed the document to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. The judge examined it. She looked at Arthur. Then she looked at Derek. Mr. Mears, she said, this is a very clear record. The notary's log is a public document. It is admissible as evidence. It confirms that the amendment was properly executed. Derek's face went pale. Your Honor, do you have any evidence that the amendment was obtained through undue influence or lack of capacity? Derek's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we request a continuance. We need more time to gather evidence. The judge shook her head. Denied. This case has been on the calendar for 6 months. You have had ample time to prepare. I am ruling on the evidence presented today. She looked at Arthur. Mr. Mears, I am validating the amendment. The house goes to your granddaughter, Chloe, as you intended. The rest of the estate is divided according to the original will. This court is adjourned. The judge banged her gavel. Arthur felt Louise's hand tighten on his arm. He did not cry. He did not cheer. He just sat there breathing. Derek stood up. He was shaking. His lawyer was packing up his briefcase, not looking at him. Dad, Derek said. Arthur did not turn around. Dad, please. Arthur stood up. He took Louise's arm. They walked out of the courtroom together. Outside, the sun was shining. It was cold, but the sky was clear. Arthur stood on the courthouse steps, looking at the light. Sarah came up beside him. It's over. Arthur, you won? Thank you, Sarah. Don't thank me. You did the right thing. You prepared. You documented. That's why you won. Arthur nodded. He looked at the courthouse doors. Derek had not come out yet. Go home, Sarah said. Rest. You've earned it. Louise took his hand. Let's go home, Arthur. Let's have some tea. They walked to the car. Arthur drove slowly, the way he always did. Louise sat beside him, her hand on his arm. When they got home, the house was quiet. The cat was sleeping on the couch. The kettle was on the stove. Arthur sat down in his chair. He looked at the bookshelf he had built. The secret compartment was closed, empty. But he had the copy. He had the notary log. He had the truth. And in the end, the truth had been enough. That night, Arthur could not sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Louise was breathing softly beside him. He thought about Derek. He thought about the boy he had raised, the man he had become. He thought about the betrayal. He did not feel anger. He felt something else. Something quieter. Pity. He got out of bed and walked to the living room. He sat in his chair. He looked at the bookshelf. The cat came and sat on his lap. He stroked its fur. He thought about Chloe. She would be home in 3 years. She would have the house. She would have a place to come back to. That was enough. 3 weeks passed. Arthur did not hear from Derek. He did not expect to. He spent his days the way he always did. He woke up early. He made coffee. He read the newspaper. He worked in the garden. Louise made soup. She mended clothes. She talked to Chloe on the phone. Life went on. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Arthur was in the backyard, pruning the rose bushes. He wiped his hands on his jeans and walked to the front door. When he opened it, he did not recognize the woman standing there. She was tall, with dark hair pulled back in a bun. She was wearing a black coat and carrying a briefcase. She looked tired. "Mr. Mears," she said. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm a lawyer. I need to talk to you about your son, Derek." Arthur's heart sank. "Is he dead?" "No, not yet. But he will be if someone doesn't help him." Arthur stared at her. "I don't understand. May I come in?" Arthur stepped aside. He led her to the living room. Louise came out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "This is Elena Vasquez," Arthur said. "She's a lawyer. She wants to talk about Derek." Louise sat down. Her face was pale. Elena opened her briefcase. She pulled out a stack of papers. "Mr. and Mrs. Mears, I'm going to be direct with you. Your son is in serious trouble. He has been involved in a real estate fraud scheme. He and his business partner, a man named Marcus Webb, have been defrauding elderly homeowners out of their properties for the past 2 years. Arthur felt the room grow cold. "What?" "Marcus Webb was arrested last week. He's been cooperating with the FBI. He named your son as his partner. Derek is looking at federal charges, fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. He's facing 20 years. Louise put her hand over her mouth. "Why are you telling us this?" Arthur said. "Because Derek came to me. He asked me to reach out to you. He wants to make things right." Arthur shook his head. "He had his chance to make things right. He stole from me. He lied. He tried to take my house. I know. He told me everything. 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 The will, the amendment, the secret compartment. He told me the truth." Arthur looked at her. "Why now?" "Because he's scared. Because he's facing prison. Because he finally understands what he's done." Louise spoke. Her voice was quiet. "What does he want from us? He wants you to testify at his sentencing, not to defend him, to tell the judge what he did, to show that he has a pattern of dishonesty, to show that he needs to be held accountable." Arthur stared at her. "You want me to testify against my own son?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it's the only way he can get a lighter sentence. If he cooperates fully, if he shows remorse, if he takes responsibility, the judge might give him 10 years instead of 20, but he needs character witnesses. He needs people to tell the truth about him, the good and the bad." Arthur sat back in his chair. He looked at the bookshelf. He thought about Derek as a boy. He thought about the fishing trips, the baseball games, the bedtime stories. He thought about the betrayal, the theft, the lies. "I don't know if I can do this," Arthur said. "You don't have to decide now, but I want you to know that Derek is serious. He's not trying to manipulate you. He knows what he did was wrong. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's asking for justice." Arthur nodded. He did not say anything. Elena stood up. She handed him a business card. "Call me when you've decided." She left. Arthur sat in his chair for a long time. Louise came and sat beside him. She took his hand. "What do you want to do?" she said. "I don't know. Think about it. Take your time." He nodded. He looked out the window. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. He thought about the word justice. He thought about the word mercy. He did not know which one he believed in anymore. A week later, Arthur called Elena Vasquez. "I'll do it," he said. "Thank you, Mr. Mears. I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it because it's the right thing. I understand." The sentencing was scheduled for March. Arthur and Louise drove to the federal courthouse in the city. It was a tall building, gray and imposing. The courtroom was large and cold. Derek was already there. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. His hands were cuffed in front of him. His face was thin. His eyes were hollow. He looked at Arthur. He did not smile. He did not wave. He just looked. Arthur sat in the witness stand. He was sworn in. The judge asked him questions. Arthur answered them. He told the truth. He told the judge about the will amendment. He told him about the secret compartment. He told him about the lawsuit. He told him about the years of silence, the missed birthdays, the empty chairs at holidays. He told him about the betrayal. When he was done, the judge looked at him. "Mr. Mears, do you have anything else to say?" Arthur looked at Derek. Derek was crying. His shoulders were shaking. His face was wet. "I want my son to be held accountable," Arthur said. "But I also want him to know that I still love him, that I will always love him, and that I hope he finds a way to become the man I always believed he could be." The judge nodded. Derek was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Arthur did not stay to watch them take him away. 2 years passed. Arthur turned 80. Louise turned 78. They still lived in the same house. They still gardened. They still drank tea. Chloe came home for Christmas. She was 22 now. She had graduated from college. She had a job in the city. She sat in the living room looking at the bookshelf. "Grandpa," she said, "can I tell you something?" "Of course. I'm not coming back to live here. I love this house. But I have a life in the city now. I want to start my own family. I want to build my own home." Arthur nodded. He had known this might happen. "That's okay, Chloe. This house will always be yours. You can do whatever you want with it. I want to give it to you. You and Grandma. You should have it. You built it. You loved it. You deserve to live in it for the rest of your lives." Arthur looked at her. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Thank you, Chloe." She hugged him. She smelled like lavender and youth. On a Tuesday in April, Arthur received a letter. It was from a federal prison in West Virginia. He opened it with shaking hands. The letter was short. It was written in neat, careful handwriting. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I am sorry. I am sorry for everything. For the lies, for the betrayal, for the years of silence. I am trying to become a better man. It is hard, but I am trying. I think about you every day. I think about the fishing trips. I think about the bookshelf. I think about the way you used to whistle when you worked in the garden. I don't know if I will ever be able to look you in the eye again, but I hope that one day you will be able to look at me and see something good. I love you, Dad." Derek. Arthur read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. He walked to the backyard. Louise was planting tomatoes. The sun was warm on his face. "Who was it from?" she said. "Derek." "What did he say?" "He said he's sorry." Louise looked at him. "What do you think?" Arthur looked at the garden. The roses were blooming. The tomatoes were growing. The world was green and alive. "I think," he said, "that people can change, but it takes time and it takes work." He sat down on the bench beside her. "I think I'm going to write him back." Louise smiled. She took his hand. "I think that's a good idea." That night, Arthur sat at his desk. He took out a piece of paper. He picked up his pen. He wrote, "Derek, I got your letter. I am glad you are sorry. But sorry is not enough. It is a start. It is a door. But you have to walk through. I will always be your father. I will always love you. But I will not forget what you did. I will not pretend it didn't happen. When you get out, you will have to earn my trust. You will have to earn it every day. That is the only way. I am proud of you for writing the letter. It took courage. Keep trying. Dad." He sealed the envelope. He put it in the mailbox. Then he went to the living room. Louise was reading. The cat was sleeping on her lap. Arthur sat down in his chair. He looked at the bookshelf. The compartment was empty. But the bookshelf was still there, solid, strong, built to last. He thought about the future. He did not know what it would bring. He did not know if Derek would ever truly change. He did not know if Chloe would ever come home. But he knew one thing. He knew that he had done his best. He had loved his children. He had built a home. He had planted a garden. And that was enough. He closed his eyes. The house was quiet. The night was gentle. Arthur Mears fell asleep in his chair, his hand resting on the armrest, his heart at peace. Outside, the stars were bright. The wind was soft. The world was turning. And somewhere, in a prison cell in West Virginia, a man was reading a letter from his father, crying in the dark, trying to become someone worth forgiving. The story was not over, but for now, it was enough.